Very Bad Wizards is a podcast with a philosopher, my dad, and a psychologist, Dave Pizarro, having an informal discussion about issues in science and ethics. Please note that the discussion contains bad words that I'm not allowed to say, and knowing my dad, some very inappropriate jokes.
This is weird. It's just plain weird. Like I just don't belong.
The great boss has spoken! Pay no attention to that man behind the curtain!
Who are you? Who are you? A very bad man.
I'm a very good man. Good man. They think deep thoughts, and with no more brains than you have. Pay no attention to that man. Anybody can have a brain.
You're a very bad man.
I'm a very good man. Just a very bad wizard.
Welcome to Very Bad Wizards. I'm Tamler Summers from the University of Houston. Dave, today Barry Lam joins us again to talk in the main segment about David Lynch's Eraserhead. Last time he was on, we did a deep dive into Primer. What is it about Barry that we have him on for some of the most inscrutable movies ever made?
What would be movie 3? Because I hadn't thought about that. But it's so true.
Some super
In fact,
mainstream
what-
Marvel thing, like, you know, or something like,
Yeah, that's right.
the other
4,
end, yeah.
Love and Thunder will be the number.
Yeah.
First, you've just published a book, and the book is called Fewer Rules, Better People. You published it with Norton Press.
That's right. February 11th release date. It's a nice little book. It's a slim short, part of their short series, trying to get philosophy out to the masses, just like you guys.
Yeah, but with Norton. That's pretty good. Dave, as you know, Barry, is a strict Kantian and an obsessive rule follower. So, I imagine, Dave, that this book that argues that we need to cut down on the rules instead of expand them and multiply them. Are you scandalized by this?
I was more disappointed
Yeah.
in Barry because I know him. I like rules, but I like to break them. But Barry, you're in this weird in between. You're like, no. Have the rules, but it's okay if you break them every once in a while.
Yeah, I so much of the book was actually trying to make the case on behalf of the people who are rule makers and rule followers, about why they were not completely incorrect in thinking that whenever there's some kind of social problem or some violation that we need some new rule. Is trying to be extra charitable to them on grounds of fairness, on grounds of rule of law.
I appreciated that.
Yeah.
I appreciated that.
Right.
Tamler's all for bias. He's like, let everybody decide on their own, and then they could be racist and stuff. Like, that's fine. That's fine.
Yeah, because as we know, we never have racist outcomes when strict procedures are followed.
No,
right.
Not never, Tamler. You know what I'm saying.
Yeah, but that's the thing is that different standards are applied when there's rules and when there's not. But if you just look at outcomes, it's not clear which. But let's
100%. 100%. That's a whole chapter. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
There's a passage that you have. You needed to get like a second vaccine booster for your child, and there was some problem with the records, and you're trying to see this, like you just said, from their perspective, and you say, one scandal is enough to cause major procedural reactions. It is built into the evolutionary structure of organizations of scale to encounter problems and liabilities and to fix them by formulating a new rule sent out by memo for other people to implement. It's part of that same evolution for someone somewhere to find a loophole in the rule leading to an additional clause culminating in dozens of pages of fine print and then a computer system that collects, organizes, and sends information in accordance with these rules. Rules and procedures are the order of the day when any organization gets large enough, and in a litigious society like the U.S., these rules better be in writing and reviewed by the modern-day clergy of rulemaking lawyers. I think that really gets at how something that is started with good intentions can just all of a sudden mushroom into this huge bureaucracy that nobody wanted. But like once it's out of the box, it's like just a runaway, not just train, but a train that just keeps having like 6 other trains sprouting from it. It doesn't seem like we have a great way of dealing with that.
No, it's built into the way an organization that's larger than, I don't know, 100 people maybe are evolve, right? There's this whole chapter I call the laws of bureau dynamics, which are, the first law of bureau dynamics is that rules only increase in complexity. They never decrease in complexity. A great example of this is if you ever have any inclination to look at the US tax code, sometimes you might have good reason to because you're doing your taxes, although now we just use TurboTax, right? You'll have these really bizarre things in there, like does prize money count as taxable income, right? And you'll see like 3 clauses that are so incredibly specific. You're like, where did this come from? So I actually looked this up. So it was like something like prize money is non-taxable when it's something like the Nobel Prize, but if you entered yourself into a competition and then got a prize, then that is taxable income. And then there were like unless and then some various other clauses in there. And you could kind of see this, right? Somebody won the Nobel Prize and the country was like very proud of the guy and was probably like, oh, does he have to pay like 30% on that? So they said, oh, well, let's not make it taxable income. But then somebody just, entered a bunch of game shows maybe, right? And then they said, we got this prize. And like, wait, you're entering the game show. So then, some senator or some aide in tax policy probably thought, okay, now I got to close that loophole. And then there you go. There's your law of bureau dynamics. And, and if you're in universities like we are, you see this everywhere. You're traveling, you're hiring, you're whatever it is, submitting an end of year report. Yeah.
Right. So in our department, we recently merged with another department, right? So we doubled in size. And what I found was that there was this increased need for rules because there was something about the organic nature of one of the departments, like with only half of those people, that had developed norms and social systems of norm enforcement so that nobody would try to get away with things. So a rule was never necessary to be written down. Like if somebody had tried, it would just be frowned upon. They would be like, told not to do that. And then when we couldn't rely on having this shared culture or these shared norms with all of the like enforcement, the social level, then it had to be written down. And I got to say, like, I think this is exactly what your book is sort of like, at least the sentiment that I got from it. It just made me sad. Like I felt like we lost something.
Yeah.
You
absolutely did lose something. And is it now, is it enforced? Like, so.
Now it has to be enforced.
Okay,
We have a good German chair of the department who he's actually a wonderfully sweet guy, but he does like his rules.
Yeah.
One of my favorite chapters, Barry, was on sports and rules, which is always a source of constant and entertaining debate in like sports media. And I just find the whole thing super interesting. I mean, I think it's a really good test case for your book. One of the examples that come to mind, I don't know if you bring this up, is the NFL and all the rules and variations of those rules on what counts as a catch. Do you talk about that?
I don't talk about the catch rules in the NFL, but it's one thing worth talking about. So yeah, is it so just to use a piece of vocabulary for my book, is it legalistic? Is it like here are some kind of an attempt at necessary and sufficient conditions?
It's legalistic to the point, though, where nobody can understand it. It's now opaque even to the people applying it and certainly to the fan. And I think it's actually a good example of this because it used to be catch the ball, both hands on the ball, 2 feet in bounds. That was it.
Right.
And I don't know what destabilized about that, but there was probably some problem of, well, you call this a catch, or what happens if he goes to the ground and he fumbles it. Once that train got started, it's a great example. Now there's like 19 different rules about how much possession you have to have when you hit the ground when you're in bounds, and like, did your toe tap your elbow, or does your shoulder count as your... all these things now to the point where it's completely opaque to everyone involved in it. And it's a constant source of frustration for the fans. And it didn't used to be.
Yeah.
It used to be both feet in bounds. College was 1 foot, NFL was 2 feet.
Yeah. So it sounds like that particular rule is at the kind of end point of legalism, which is the thing that I'm just strongly trying to argue against generally for all institutions. The one example that I do talk about are foul rules in basketball, which are kind of like that. There was one line at the founding of basketball that says this constitutes a foul, and now it's 10 sections, 10 pages, 9 subsections, right?
Wow. Yeah.
And with definitions that differentiate between personal fouls and technical fouls and flagrant fouls. And one of the drivers of the laws of bureau dynamics, increasingly complex rules, I talk about is mistrust in referees in particular and umpires. And in the case of governance, it's going to be mistrust in institutions and cops and people who are in a position of power, lawmakers and so forth. And, you could have a very highly discretionary rule in sports, like a catch is what's ruled as a catch by the referee or the umpire.
Right.
That's very simple. And sports fans generally hate completely discretionary rules because it kind of puts the outcomes of games in the hands of people that they don't trust, or even if they trust one, they don't trust them all, right? So they don't equally trust, right? And as this evolves, as the mistrust gets more, right, so even in the foul rules, after 10 pages, you still have to have a discretionary clause, right? Or something else judged as unnatural touching by the referee.
Unnatural.
And the irony is they still have so much discretion.
No,
and
that's
they
right.
still call it in all sorts of different ways. And there's different rules on fouls for the playoffs than there are for the regular season. And there's some referees that let the boys play, and then there's others that call every ticky-tack foul. And like players, so it's not even like you don't have these biases or these referees. Like it's an interesting case where it hasn't worked, except maybe replay, the rules of replay on certain things, which have their own problems. But it really hasn't worked to make the referees and the officials more trustworthy to the fans and I think to the players too.
Right. So adding to that, is it a possibility that it was what brought a lot of this on in football and probably in other sports is the increased availability of replays and our ability to sort of like have more precision about a ball, like whereas the naked eye couldn't catch whether there was too much what do you call it, like the bobbing up and down of the ball in the hands before he hit the ground. Like the naked eye can't catch that. But now that you can catch it with a replay, then it's like, okay, well, a reading of the rule of like having possession now, like, should we not look? Like, but we can look.
You really should look when you have the ability to look. So I actually, it's interesting whether the increase in complexity of rules is correlated with more surveillance, right? Yeah. So this is something. So definitely the increase in not the amount of rule, but the specificity of the rule definitely comes with increased surveillance. So here's another example. Drunk driving laws used to just be, before the invention of the breathalyzer, judgment of the officer whether this person is drunk enough to have to go to drive, right? And that's where all these tests come from, right? Like touching your nose and all this stuff. And they still exist, but as soon as the breathalyzer was invented, you just choose an arbitrary, it's not completely arbitrary, but I think it's arbitrary enough, of 0.08. And now you have a specific rule, right? And specificity comes with the ability to surveil, right? So the more ability to surveil, I think you will get more specificity. But the more rules part might come from, both surveillance and like, I'm going to argue that wasn't a catch. Like it went up like one time from his left hand or something. And then at that point, it's like, okay, let's all sit around in a committee at the NFL and figure out whether it comes
task
up.
Force.
That's right.
It really has, I think one complaint, I think a real true complaint is that it takes away a lot of the joy of the game. I mean, for one, it slows it down. But look at in soccer, this is the example that was on my mind because it just recently happened. There was a case where a penalty kick was given and then ruled out because there was a double touch on the ball. So the player, like his foot made contact with the ball twice. And one of the analysts who was a referee said, look, in soccer, there are two kinds of rules. One is a rule of judgment and one is a technical rule. And a technical rule, like it doesn't matter intent, like whatever, like if it happened, it's illegal. Like, and so in this case, if they can prove that it happened, it doesn't matter whether it wasn't in the spirit of the game. It has to be called illegal. And you see that with the offside rule, where it's literally a millimeter, right? The offside rule was not intended to judge that. It was just supposed to be like, don't cherry pick.
Oh, right,
and now, because we have to call out offside.
Yeah.
And it just seems like nobody likes that.
Yeah, right.
I think it's a really good question. And why I talk about sports is what kinds of rules in sports we as sports fans and as sports players think should be discretionary.
Yeah.
And which ones are we perfectly happy to be completely non-discretionary, so much so that we'll let automated calls, right? So as a baseball fan, I would say, I kind of like automated strike zone calling.
I disagree.
Okay, we can argue about
that
because, but if you look at the variation across umpires, sometimes it's like a freaking egregious, call so far outside
Angel
the
Hernandez
structure. That's right, the Angel Hernandez. But I think everybody should agree that unsportsmanlike conduct rules should be discretionary. Right? The idea that you want to come up with a super precise definition of what constitutes unsportsmanlike conduct and then enforce that, algorithmically is just, doesn't make sense. But but the strike zone thing, I'm actually open, because I like discretionary rules more than I like precise.
Yeah,
ones.
I mean, the idea is, as a huge baseball fan, like players would get to know umpires and they would get a sense of what their strike zone was generally. But then also, like sometimes it would change game to game, and it was like a skill for the hitter to get on the same wavelength as the umpire as to what the strike zone was. That was like part of the intellectual part of the game for the players. And anytime a player was complaining about the umpire, it wouldn't be they called balls that technically weren't balls. It was they were being inconsistent.
Right.
They weren't being consistent within. So like I think the idea, the ideal to aspire to that I enjoyed the most anyway was when you had and there were great examples of this. There were some good umpires. Like they had a consistent strike zone for both teams during that game. And part of the job of the batter was to figure out exactly what that was. Yeah. And now if you just have like automated stuff, it just takes a little bit of away from that element of the game. I mean, there's obviously benefits also, so I'm not denying that, but I don't know. It's like one of the things that, I think it's going to change fan to fan.
Yeah.
Probably depend on when you were at that peak of your fandom, like when that was.
Well, Tamler, what you've articulated actually is the central thesis of the book. The thing that discretionary judgment gives you when you don't have overly complex rules and mandatory enforcement is to develop judgments about another person who's part of the game. In this case, the umpire, right? And that's sort of what you want, not only in citizens, but you want them in judges, and you want them in police officers, and you want them in congresspeople, right? You want them in your doctor, you want them in the nurse at the hospital. The one thing that's missing, and you are even more extreme than I am, because you think even with respect to strike zones, is develop a kind of wisdom and judgment about the judgments of other people. Right. Mm-hmm. And discretionary decision making, both allowing that for the umpire and in the case of like governance, allowing that of your citizens in addition to the people who are enforcing your citizens, that's completely lost in a legalistic world.
Yeah.
Right.
And think about how often we have to do this in everyday life. Like, your wife comes home and she's in a certain kind of mood and you're like, okay, I'm going to have to sort of navigate like this mood that she's in right now until that changes. It's like this skill of just having to be like new. I'm not saying I'm good at that. I'm probably really bad at that. But like,
but you are saying she's moody.
I'm saying she's a little moody.
As Barry walks away,
she comes in. She comes home. She's like, "Where's my bourbon?" And no, but you know what I mean? Like you do this, like when you meet somebody for the first time, you're trying to gauge like what their I don't want to say energy is, but like what kind of things you can get away with saying and joking about, what kind of things you can't, like that. And so anytime you're going to like have some sort of ironclad rule about how to engage with someone, you lose what is, I think, part of the drama of life. And I think also what's part of the drama of sports.
Yeah. I mean, on the other alternative would be the don't talk to your wife for a 10-minute rule, right? Or some kind of rule like that, which some people do have relationships like that and operate like that. And what they are gaining, they're losing exactly what you're saying they're losing, right, Tamler? What they're gaining is like, wife gets pissed off. He said, nope, I was just following the 10-minute don't talk to the wife rule, right? Whereas what she really wanted that day was for you to immediately, go to her and say something, right? Something like that. And
but you have a built-in excuse.
You have a built-in excuse, right? That's exactly what legalistic rules and rule following gives you.
In the kind of religion that I was raised in, there was always this, even though we had a lot of rules, there was always a belief that legalism would be a bad thing, and that it's so cliche to say spirit of the law versus letter of the law. But that is really, truly what you lose. Like with these, like exactly what you were saying, with the emergence of concrete, really specific rules, you can get away with a lot of things that nobody ever would have wanted you to. It almost gives you ideas for how to get better circumvent the spirit of the law, right?
Yes,
It's
right.
funny. Yeah,
like
that's
using
right.
the letter to circumvent the spirit, like the obscurest elements of it. And it rewards bureaucrats. It rewards professional bureaucrats too.
Yeah.
It elevates them.
Yeah. And, maybe we're talking about the same thing, but one of the key villains in the later chapters is what I call the by the book bureaucrat, right? This is the person who doesn't exercise any discretion with respect to whatever. And so you violate the letter of the rule. It's a no. And if these people are in charge of us, right? This is the story that I tell in that chapter is, not a high stakes story, but it was a story of a university administrator who was in charge of approving catering orders. And I was at an event where they wanted coffee, and it started at 9 a.m. and the only approved vendor was this vendor that opened at 10, for instance. And she said, "Okay, well, just let me apply for an exception. Oh, look. The coffee I want to buy is from Starbucks, and this vendor subcontracts out the coffee orders to Starbucks anyways. So by the spirit of the rule, it should be perfectly fine, right?" Of course, this administrator said, "Yeah, but it doesn't say Starbucks is an approved of vendor.
Oh God!
Even the vendor subcontracts it out, but that's on them, not on me." So she did not approve the coffee order, right? And I've had deans like this. Right.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you have some examples in your life where you've come across this. Yeah.
Of course. Like academia, there's rules with purchases of all different kinds. And I think, like you're saying, the best kind of business manager is the ones that kind of know workarounds or will just, they have enough credibility within the organization that if something wasn't followed and that's going to be picked up by somebody down the line, it's not going to be a huge pain in the ass for them. They're trusted. It is all tied to trust, but I think that's been slowly eroding, because given that this rewards bureaucrats, the bureaucrats just will make more bureaucracy. That's their oxygen. That's the water they swim in.
Right. And these are the laws of bureaudynamics and what I'm fighting against in the book. So like at the end, it's like, nope, we got to respond. We got to push back.
Yes, we're going to start a revolution. Barry. These same elements that you're talking about that lead to the greater expansion of rules and bureaucracy, lack of trust, and people unwilling to take responsibility. These are the same features of also the move towards quantification, probably for some of the same reasons, but that's what everyone says. When you go to metrics, you go to quantification, part of the reason you do that is lack of trust, lack of trust in teachers, lack of trust in people making decisions, lack of trust in judges, in the criminal justice system. And so you want to go to something numerical that's quote unquote objective. And then also the other part of it is just people not wanting to take responsibility. Like, I don't want this to be my fault. Like, if I make a judgment and I use my discretion and it goes badly, that'll be my fault. I'll get shit for it, and I don't want to do that. So I defer to this rule. I defer to the 10-minute rule, or something. It might be the only way to survive in certain institutions, but it's deeply unfortunate to have that state of affairs, I think.
I think it's not only unfortunate, I think it's going to lead to a lot of existential crises in people. I think it damages people's moral character. It definitely damages their decision-making ability. It makes a life less joyful. So I loved your episode on Tina Yuan's anti-metrics paper. So there's a whole chapter about the quantification of qualitative human judgments. So in the criminal justice system, there are algorithmic risk assessment procedures. So how likely is this person to commit this crime again in 6 months? Run it through the algorithm. It's a score from 1 through 5. The major story in that is about GRE essay scoring, which went algorithmic in 2004, that early. And so on the grounds that human judges were more inconsistent, you're likelier to get 2 human judges that'll score an essay a 5 and a 2. But the machine would always only be varying from the human judge by 1 point, right? That took over. If you write an essay to go into graduate school, you're going to be evaluated algorithmically. Right now, I think Yelp reviews and Uber reviews, I mean, we don't care anymore who's driving us, right? Or the unsophisticated care about the restaurant. They care if it's a 4.6 or above, right? Or whatever that number is, right? And so, I mean, the smarter culinary, citizens will be like, okay, that's some information, but no, you know what? Some Asian students will say, actually, I just look for the lower scores because then I think, oh, maybe that's because like white people don't like it and maybe they have some weird funky food that I might like, something like that. And good, you're developing judgments. But by and large,
that sounds like a rule.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. But by and large, like most people are using heuristics based on those like metrics,
people have this complaint about Rotten Tomatoes. It's an attack on our agency. Like it's like fewer and fewer decisions are being made by us and are just being made by all these other things. And sometimes that's welcome because we can waste a lot of time about decisions. But sometimes it's like I think you said, it's damaging to our virtue.
Yeah. Well, look, it's going to be my shtick, but I'll just say this: you two should get a room and make out and make sweet love because you clearly see eye to eye on this. All I'll say, I think our audience knows what I would retort all this stuff is. The big advantage of the quantification of all that stuff is like, if I want to buy a vacuum cleaner, I don't know shit about vacuum cleaners. I don't want to spend my life learning about vacuum cleaners. I actually trust that those numbers are capturing way more than I would have otherwise. And if I were like to have to read all the reviews to get some fancy qualitative judgment about the quality of vacuum cleaners, I'd want to like poke my eyes out by the end of that, right? So like if I look and I say, yeah, you know what? A vacuum cleaner that's 4.9 rated on Amazon is better than the 3.8 one. Let me buy that one. Like that's a huge advantage, right?
I agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it is a huge advantage, especially like, so this is another problem of scale, the kind of thing that pushes us in the direction not only of quantification, but rules and procedures that are regularized over large. This is just the scale of decision making. Yeah, there's the sheer amount of things that we have to buy and that are reviewed. It's a good heuristic to be using that.
Yeah, but you know what? My sentiment is in agreement. Believe it or not, even Tamler, your defense of anti automated strike rule is like the best one I've heard. Yeah. Not that I listen that much to those arguments, but I think there is a real value in understanding what it is you lose, and sometimes you weigh the costs and the benefits, right? Like it'd be fine if somebody said, look, like the egregious errors that have happened because of bad umpires are such that I'm willing to take that loss, but like you got to know what you're losing.
That's right.
And
like I think, even with replay, which I think everyone is like, well, people at home can see it, then they should be able to see it too. But then all of a sudden now you're going frame by frame to see whether the ball touched this guy's finger before it went out of bounds or something in basketball. Right. And all of a sudden, it takes an extra 10 minutes to get through 30 seconds of basketball because they're always putting everything to this minute replay. That's a great example of, I don't think people realized it would be like that, Yeah. I think everyone thought, well, if it obviously goes off somebody, then, but now that the technology, like you said earlier, Dave, the technology gets so much better that it's you start to feel like you can't not do that. But
right. What are we going to do? Not look to whether the metaphysical truth of touching his finger is
exactly. It gets very metaphysical at those levels. What does it even mean to touch something?
Right.
What do you think, sports fans? What do you think they would think if, to solve the, it takes too long problem, the frames are put through a well-trained AI and then it spits out the thing, right? So in tennis line calling,
tennis,
I was going to say,
yeah. And I think by and large, I saw a player gripe and complain about it this weekend at Indian Wells, but by and large, it's gotten rid of the McEnroe problem, right? It's gotten rid of the hugely pissed off tennis player who says I've just lost the match because of your stupid line calling, which there was. So do you think sports fans would, given a certain degree of consistency and reliability, accept that?
Yeah, I think that's a great example. And I think in tennis, and especially when you could challenge it. See, that was a happy medium for me. You had the line callers, but they could challenge, and they had plenty of challenges. You rarely had a player run out of challenges. Right. And they could do it really fast because of the AI thing. And for some reason, everyone just thought this little animated thing is actually real. That's the suspension of disbelief we all have to make, that's what actually happened. Not only is it out, but it's out by that much instead of that much, But then, going to the US Open, I went to it this past year. Now they don't even have lines officials.
That's right.
They just have a voice recorder saying
that's crazy.
I was creeped out by. That was too dystopian.
There's no point in
me.
challenging because it's exactly what the
challenge
call was.
will just be that, what they said.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually think it in those examples, but what Tamler, you alluded to, the speed with which those judgments are made is a huge boon.
Yeah.
And I really do think that in sports, it would actually be a really good conversation to have about what is okay for us to rely on. An automated offside call would be better than them pouring through, having to draw those lines and waste 5 minutes. I would much rather it just be beep, okay, offside, let's keep playing. And then you can just just say, okay, clearly we want ref judgments on some of these things, like fouls, for instance. I think.
Yeah. Soccer is interesting. There's so much discretion still in soccer, even though they get bogged down with these little,
it's crazy, right?
On certain very specific things. But extra time is just kind of what the referee.
Right. Or how far you're allowed to move the ball from the spot the ref marked from where you kick.
Yeah.
They'll let you fuck with it a little bit, but don't get egregious.
Extra time is such a high stakes decision that they're leaving to discretionary calls, and fans are fine. So
and we don't you don't know. It's not even they get to decide how much extra time, and then you see it. It's just at some point he's going to blow the whistle. We don't know. We don't know.
They tell you how many minutes.
Yeah, we don't know it within a minute of when they're going to do it.
Yeah, I love that imprecision in soccer.
I do too. It feels like they've in the transitionary stage right now with that stuff, because people bitch about extra time discretion right now.
Yeah, especially because they blow the whistle when a play is done, right? They don't. You wouldn't want the clock to go off in the middle of a promising offensive,
a 2-on-1 or something.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like both of you guys are 100% on board with this thesis,
yes,
general thesis.
Yeah. It's we were talking about off air. It comes at a time where I think people are not necessarily inclined to give up the rules established in the Constitution, or so we thought. But it's going to have legs, this book, because I do think it's capturing a lot of people's frustration with modern life.
The hope was that this was going to be the message for Democrats and democratic states, right? When they were in power, and say, okay, there's a real frustration, right? That's coming from the, you might want to say libertarian right, but I'm not libertarian at all. But I'm trying to put, an analysis to it, and the proposals were moderate, right? So why don't we learn to like vaguer rules rather than more precise rules? Incorporate discretion into all of the rules. Always have a clause that says, or unless there's an exception to be made, the judgment of the enforcer, and so forth. And then the last proposal was give a discretionary budget to new people. So they're learning on the job. They're trying to figure out how to make the right calls. They get, 5 opportunities to make calls in the spirit of the rule, but against the letter of it. And if they did well, then you increase that, whatever that happens to be. It could be a cop who refuses to do an arrest, or a judge decides to let somebody go, even though the algorithm says they're a 5 on the recidivism meter, or something like that. I think those are moderate, sensible, proposals. Instead, what we're getting is, burn the entire bureaucracy down. So now, maybe no one should be in the FAA, directing air traffic control or something. Yeah.
Here's your plane on fire yesterday.
Yeah. Thanks. I'm glad we talked. We broke our own rule in talking with you about this. We used our discretion. We have no guests who've just put out a book and want to talk about the book. We don't do that normally. We usually just have them, as we're about to do, to talk about movies, but we broke the rule because of your thesis.
Right. So you used your discretion. I'm so grateful. We did, and I'm so glad you guys liked the book.
All right. We'll be right back to talk about Eraserhead. Welcome back to Very Bad Wizards. If I sound a little down, well, that's because my University of Houston Cougars, my beloved Cougs from this year, so much grit, so much toughness, just outworked everyone all year. They lost an excruciating national championship game last night, would have been their first. Just an excruciating loss after an absolutely historic, amazing comeback victory against Duke, the most loathsome team in all of college sports. So that was great on Saturday. It made the heartbreak even worse last night. Anyhow, this is the time where we like to take a moment and express our gratitude to all the people who reach out with us, who connect with us, who build the Very Bad Wizards community. If you would like to email us at verybadwizards@gmail.com. If you would like to tweet at us at Peas, at Tamler, at verybadwizards, you can follow us on Instagram, like us on Facebook, join the Reddit community. And give us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you listen to. That really helps other people find the podcast, and it has been growing, it seems like. Oh, and if you really want to cheer me up, follow me on Letterboxd. I'm trying to post reviews there. I enjoy the interaction. It's a healthy social media environment, it seems like, one of the few remaining. And if you'd like to support us in even more tangible ways, you can go to the support page on the website. Best thing to do is become a Patreon supporter. There are multiple different tiers. For $2 a month, you get all the volumes of Dave's Beats. At $5 a month, you enter our bonus episode tier. We just completed our Severance season 2 bonus episodes with Paul Bloom. Of course, there's The Ambulators, our deep dive breakdown of every episode of Deadwood. So much other stuff. A lot of David Lynch stuff relevant to the segment coming up. You can also vote on an episode topic, which we do about twice a year at the $10 level. And at the highest level, you can ask us a question every month, and we will answer it in our monthly AUA bonus episodes, which will be a video for our highest tier members and an audio for all of our bonus episode tier members. We love doing those. It's a lot of fun. Questions are great. Yeah, so thank you so much for all your support, all your interaction. It really does warm our hearts. Now let's get to our deep, deep dive into David Lynch's first movie, Eraserhead.
Believe it or not, Eraserhead is my most spiritual film.
Mm-hmm. Why elaborate on that?
No, I won't. No one sees it.
All right. We have Barry Lam here. It must be time to talk about a real head scratcher. Today it is in honor of David Lynch's passing, his first feature film, Eraserhead. This is in 1977. He had been an art student and then an off and on again fellow at the American Film Institute. And through this, he was able to make Eraserhead, but over the course of 5 years. It took him 5 years to do it. He would shoot scenes, run out of money, then raise or make funds, and then resume shooting. And kind of famously, there's a shot of Jack Nance, who plays Henry, entering a room or a building, and then the next shot is of him inside. But those two shots were taken over a year apart. He shot it all at night, made most of the sets himself. You can, if you know of David Lynch's sculptures and stuff that you also see in other work and in that documentary, The Art Life, you can tell all the things that he made in this. I think it's one of his more surreal and dreamy movies, which is saying a lot for him. And in some ways, although this wasn't my experience this time, one of his more alienating movies, maybe put it with Inland Empire or something. But it was a huge cult hit eventually and would play at midnight showings across the country for 25 years after its release. As long as midnight showings were going, this was always in the rotation. In terms of what it means, there's very little consensus. Some people see it as expressing the anxieties of fatherhood or parenthood. Other people think the meaning goes beyond words even. And it's we can only access the meaning through our subconscious. Speaking personally, these last two times I watched it, I saw it in the theater on Wednesday night. One of the great silver linings of him dying is that you can just always see a David Lynch movie in the theater these days. I kind of had a fairly coherent interpretation of what's going on, which may talk about later towards the end of the discussion. But first, I want to hear what you guys thought, what your history with Eraserhead and Lynch is, if any, Barry, and what did you think of Eraserhead when you just saw it probably this past week?
I have no history with Eraserhead, so I watched it for the very first time this time around, which is not to say I don't have any history with David Lynch. I have quite a bit of history with Lynch. The first David Lynch film I believe I saw and did not understand and didn't remember most of it was Lost Highway. So in the 90s, when I was a teenager, I remember it being a big deal if you were into alt rock. That soundtrack was a big deal. So I came through it through the soundtrack. I remember going to the theater. I don't remember remembering much of it. I remember a little bit. I've since seen Lost Highway a couple more times. So and then I watched Mulholland Drive in the theater when it came out. And then in my early 30s, some friends had said, so this is at a point where I've already, tenure track philosophy professor. It was only then that I got the DVD set of Twin Peaks because, some people had said something about you got to watch Twin Peaks. And so I didn't find Twin Peaks until then, right? I went and bought the DVD set and watched it from start to finish. And I went back into the Lynch catalog, but Eraserhead was not one of them. All right. So this is the very first time, which fascinating. Just absolutely fascinating.
I mean, I'm a huge Lynch fan and only saw this for the first time 7 years ago or 6 years ago. It is one I kind of thought, well, that's more not for me. That's the side of him that... Yeah. Dave, what about you? First time?
I'd never seen it before, either. So first time watching it was yesterday. it had to brew in my mind a bit longer maybe than many movies. Like I will admit to like the first few minutes of it, just maybe even more, just being like, what the fuck am I watching? And then when I got a sense of the narrative, like it settled in a bit more. But when you don't know what any of the narrative is even supposed to be, you're just like, what are these images? Like, yeah.
It has,
but I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it.
It has a student art film kind of quality,
Yes.
especially at the beginning.
Right.
Yeah.
I
I
think
also was not a huge fan when I saw it the first time. Like, I thought it was great, once you get into it, like you said, but I put it on the second tier of Lynch movies. And now I'm completely kind of the other way. I think it's kind of a masterpiece. But it took me like a bunch of times before arriving at that.
I think going into it, thinking that it was going to be a first feature film, a student film, and it helped a lot with patience.
Yeah, agreed.
A patience in the beginning,
Yeah.
right? And then maybe about a third of the way in, after I laughed out loud many times, I said, "Oh, it's a comedy," right?
It is funny.
Yeah,
It is funny. It's funny.
Yeah, and of course, after a while, after half of it, I thought, "Oh, it's not a comedy," although it's funny. It's not a comedy. And then 2/3 of the way in, I thought, "Oh, I know what this is about. I know exactly what this is about." And then at the end, I said, "Oh, I don't know what this is about." That's my reaction.
Yeah, which I think is just the way he likes it. He has called it his most spiritual film,
That's right.
which is actually plays into my interpretation of it. And also, he has said that nobody has come up with, and as far as he knows, like the interpretation that is the one that he has of it. But of course, he thinks like his interpretation isn't definitive. Yeah, I think it's a very funny movie in spots in that, and there's like these kind of absurdist, like the dinner conversation, which we'll talk about, is like just very funny in the way Lynch can be funny in certain modes. But then there's this other aspect of it, which is just it as a visual and sonic experience. Like, I think the sound of it is amazing and the effects are incredible. We'll talk about the baby, but like just really all of the effects in it. But maybe especially the sound. It's something that you kind of don't really notice the first time you may not note the first time you watch the movie, but it is deeply unsettling. Like, you feel the sound. It's because there's no escape from it. It's like we're in this like clanging factory, but also a kind of a pressure cooker the whole time, and there's no rest and there's no escape, and it's like oppressive just in how constant it is. There's no moment in the movie where you're not getting kind of assaulted by these industrial noises and like these whooshes and hisses and clangings. So like I think it's a real experience to see it. And the other just general thought I have, like, this is pure Lynch in Eraserhead that you will just see remnants of throughout all of his later work in film. Yeah. So I think I had a really good time with it, and I'm excited to hear what you guys think as we try to grapple with some of the themes in it.
Visually, set design, you see the jagged, it's black and white, but you see the flooring of, the Black Lodge. You see the black and white tile. You see the stage, which appears in a lot of Lynch, right? Yep. Sonically, we can talk about this when it comes to the interpretation, but I thought sonically, I noticed it right away on the very first viewing. Immediately, and especially when the issue of the baby came up, I thought, this is an incredibly familiar sound to me.
Also, I wonder, like radiators, like the sound of the radiators and like that kind of particular clanging of gas radiators. Did you guys grow up with that in your places where just all of a sudden the radiator would just start going bong, bong, bong in the middle of the night or during the day?
Absolutely not, because I grew up in Southern California where there's not.
Right.
But when I went to college in Northern California, the dorm that we had those style radiators, and it became a very familiar sound.
Right. Yeah. I'll do you one better, Tamler. I didn't grow up with it at all because I grew up in Southern California just like David. But I had, as a young couple, my wife and I, we moved to the Northeast. We moved to Vassar, and that was constant. And it was therefore absolutely constant during the infant era of our child. And this is what I meant by the sound.
Yeah.
Almost everything about the soundscape reminded me of Poughkeepsie, New York, at the time in which I was a brand new parent, right? In so many respects, including especially the radiators.
Poughkeepsie actually is like, it could be in Poughkeepsie.
It's a post-industrial, railroad tracks and old decrepit factories that have been abandoned, things like that. There's even a pencil factory that is not in Poughkeepsie, but in Beacon. It's, which is just 15 minutes south. Well known because in the 2010s, it was this abandoned pencil factory, and there was this hipster artist who decided to open a business in the factory. Famously, it was an artisanal pencil sharpening business. All he did was he asked people from New York City to send him pencils, and he would videotape himself in the factory sharpening it in an artisanal way. So there's which was just taking a knife and like sandpaper or something like that. So there's a pencil factory. There's all of these railroad tracks, clanging radiators.
I did not know they made erasers that way until I saw this. Do you guys actually, before we get into, I have a little kind of outline of some of the scenes in order and then we can allow us to talk about specific stuff. But do you have any general ways of viewing the movie? What you think the movie's central themes are about?
Maybe it's general enough. 2/3 in, I thought, this is a movie about what it's like to care for a newborn baby if you took out all of the love and joy. That was my thought, right? 2/3 in. Of course, like I said before, after the end, I thought, oh, maybe that's not it, right? But that was my thought. Because of so much of it was so familiar, including the sounds, and maybe even the room in some respects, because it was so familiar to me as a father of a newborn in a certain era that I thought it was just like that, except if you had to take out love and joy and all of the good stuff. If you took out all of that stuff, I think that's what this movie's about.
Yeah. I was going to say something along those lines, but maybe a bit more broad, which is what you were talking about, Tamler, the sound assaulting you the whole time. Like, this to me felt like a movie of someone who is feeling trapped in life, like feeling a bleakness that can come from being somebody at the age in which you might have an infant, which is you're dealing with the stress of a relationship, you're dealing with the stress of your work life. Like, all of that is at its, hits a peak at a certain time of your life, and then the lack of sleep and the child constantly yelling. This is the nightmare parts of feeling trapped in a life that you're not sure that you should have ever gotten yourself into.
Right. And you were kind of a young dad when you had Bella, so that must have been fairly relatable in that sense.
Yeah. Absolutely. Although, exactly like Barry said, take the love out of it.
Right.
Take the moments at which you're most desperate about whether or not you should have done these things. Right. And I'm also the father of an 8-month-old, so the crying parts really get to me as well.
Yeah, I was joking with you that this is Lynch's What to Expect When You're Expecting. But I do think that I kind of had that thought too, and I think it's undeniable that it's about that to some extent, right? Lynch had just had a baby, Jennifer Lynch. She was born with club feet, and so some people,
which turns out is not about dancing at a rave.
No, and so they had to do a lot of surgery initially, but Jennifer Lynch, I don't think, took it personally. She was on the set, but I agree that I think once you get to the end of the movie, that becomes more just part of something larger. And I do think one of it is about a guy who feels trapped. I also think it's about a guy who's afraid. It's got a person who is very timid and startled by everything and completely uncomfortable in his own skin. And I think it really is about the limits and the boundaries we impose on ourselves, which keep us from accessing a kind of greater joy or bliss. And so I don't think the joy is taken out of it. It's just we're only seeing the prison. We're not seeing what the prison blocks.
Yeah.
All right. So we start. It is a floating, sideways, giant, somewhat transparent Jack Nance who plays Henry. This giant sideways Henry is floating in space by some kind of planet. We don't know exactly what it is. Then it seems like we go through. He has a lot of great shots where we just go through this opening, and this looks like some kind of corroded cylinder, and we see the man and the planet by a set of levers and looking out of a broken window. He's called the man in the planet and he does seem like a man in the planet. This is played by Jack Fisk, the great production designer. He did most of PTA's movies and a lot of Lynch stuff too, like Mulholland Drive. He's covered in warts and he spasms quite a bit. Like he has these quick spasms. Then we go back to Henry and floating sideways Henry, and out of his mouth comes some, like, I don't know how you describe it, like snaky sperm looking thing. And once that comes out, you go back to the man and the planet, and it looks like he sees that came out of his mouth, and then he very slowly goes towards the gears and pulls the lever, which makes it seems like it makes the snaky sperm fly really quickly and then land in this big puddle of like black water. So I don't know, like one way of thinking about this is the conception of the Eraserhead baby. And I think certainly there's a lot of indications that that's what's happening, but like who is this man in the planet? Why does he control conception?
So is he like the little homunculus in? Like, is he supposed to be some sort of like the homunculus controlling Henry? Is he like the internal workings of Henry?
There is
like
a reading where that there is an immediate reading. You can say, "Oh, we're looking inside Henry's head, and there's this guy." Yeah.
He's like the one who says, "Bust your nut now." Like, let yourself
don't pull out. It'll be fine.
But visually, that man sitting there looking out of the broken window I don't know why it actually distressed me. Like it's probably one of the most distressing images of the whole thing. Like there was something about, he looked like he was about to die. Like you said, he's covered in like open sores of some sort. And it looks like somebody who's just about to die because they've been injured so badly. There's war going on outside and he's, pulls this lever
like a slave laborer of some kind, like he's not enjoying his work, but he does have to do it. It seems like.
Yeah. He's just working through the sores.
Yeah.
The looking out the window motif is a thing that will return with Henry as well. The idea of looking out a window, seeing something and then intervening or not intervening. In this case, I guess this man does intervene. Like now's the time to pull these levers.
Yeah. Later in the movie, he will try to pull the levers again and they will not, they're jammed. So I think it is important that this time he's able to do it. I'm more inclined, like I absolutely think, Dave, you could have a reading of him being inside Henry, but you could also have a reading of him being something outside Henry, but that is focused on trapping him in some way. So he's kind of a hostile external force of some kind, of the kind that I think it could, I'm not sure if it matters.
Right, I can see that, like some sort of external psychic.
Yeah.
I mean, psychic in the sense that it's about the things that he's doing to the mind. Yeah. You're right. It doesn't matter so much if he's inside, but I do like the idea that fears or insecurities or something are just a thing that like are affecting.
Yeah. Because he's quite a passive character. He is someone that like it seems like things just happen to.
Yeah, life is just happening to him.
Yeah.
You can see that so clearly in another one of my favorite shots, which is the elevator.
Yes.
Yeah.
So after that happens, we go through like a bright light, like a white light, and then we're going to like regular Henry, normal Henry, quote unquote. And he's walking home and we don't know where he came from because he's on vacation, but somewhere through this just really loud industrial wasteland, there's like piles of dirt and all this stuff is great, like garbage and puddles that he steps into. And he just looks so uncomfortable, but it's also kind of comic. Have either of you guys seen movies by Jacques Tati?
No.
Like Mon Oncle or Playtime or Monsieur Hulot's Holiday. Big favorite of Lynch's. And the scene of him walking home to his building and then going into the building in the elevator is very Jacques Tati, because it's just somebody who's a little out of place. You know, somebody who's just, the environment and him are not like suitable for each other.
In sync.
In sync. Yeah, exactly.
He does do like a little bit of a Charlie Chaplin walk.
Yeah.
Can I ask you really quickly? There's this moment, like right when after that white flash, that you were talking about. When it goes to like normal Henry or whatever, he's staring into the distance, like staring at us into the middle distance, and has an expression. He's not sure what just happened. Like he just heard something or saw something that captured his attention, and he wrinkles his brows. Like is he noticing the man in the what did you call him? The man in the planet?
Man in the planet,
like, is he getting some sort of sense that he's being like, levers being pulled?
Yeah, it's a good question. I feel like that it almost freezes on his face for a lot of the movie. It's like this look of consternation. There's just like constant consternation, but it might be this kind of suspicion, like you're suggesting, that there's something going on that isn't right and that's like messing up his ability to like interact with the world.
Right.
Yeah.
It's almost like it's almost despair that turns into fear. I'm like looking at the images right now.
Yeah.
It's like a very well done performance.
Yeah. He's great. Yeah. And it's kind of iconic too. Like
there's so much in the images for us to be perplexed with. And it's interesting to think that he has a kind of consternation and perplexed look about some of those things and not other things. Like there's clearly a lot for us to be absolutely perplexed about in those opening scenes, in the landscape, in the apartment, just all these things. Like, what am I looking at? What is that? Underneath the radiator or whatever. But he's not perplexed by that. He's like perplexed by these other things.
Totally. Right? Absolutely. That's a great point. It's like, he's not our surrogate because it's like some of these things he was like, what the fuck is that? Like we are. And other things he just completely takes for granted. The thing around the radiator, whatever, like a nest of some kind or some kind of like I don't even know what that is. And he doesn't give it a second thought. It's just.
That's what makes it so powerfully a dream experience. Like in your dreams, there's random weird shit that goes on that you don't even think twice about.
Yes. And he's such a master at evoking that stuff.
Yes.
So then he's walking home, and even as he's walking home, the sound just hits you. It's like he's inside a machine of some kind.
Yep.
And then he gets to the building. How would you describe the building, with the mailboxes and the elevator?
A small European hotel that hasn't been renovated in a long time, and this is the lobby.
The elevator is great. Like when he just gets in there and it just takes irrationally long for the doors to close.
It's like just long enough to make you very uncomfortable with. It shows some degree of passivity where like, I think most people would be like, I don't know, like
pressing
clicking the button
door,
in the hopes that it would do something. But of course, he knows how that elevator works.
So he goes into the apartment. Apartment again has this like, and it's all different. It's like this now kind of a large, like a hissing or a whooshing, and then also the buzzing noises. This will recur in almost every Lynch film of the like flickering lights, that kind of zzz, zzz, zzz from the electricity. And he has a record player. He's into vinyl.
You didn't talk about the woman that's there.
Oh yes, he sees the beautiful neighbor from across the hall as she is built.
That's right.
Yeah.
Who tells her that somebody called on the payphone, which is again hilarious. Like there's only a phone in the corridor that they all have to share. She's like, Mary calls. She wants you to come to dinner tonight.
Yeah, and you get this full shot of his head and his hair. Jack Nance had to keep that same hair for like 5 years.
It's like 5 years. I read that. That's crazy.
Yeah.
And I always figured that Eraserhead referred to that hairdo. Yeah. Like it looks like the eraser on the top of a...
Yeah, everybody thinks, so I told my wife I was going to watch this, and she says, does it explain why he has an eraser head? I said, no, that's not what that refers to.
Does it explain?
Much more literal than that, actually. You also get a first shot of the radiator. It's like, that stuff by it perplexed me to no end. Like, what do you think it is?
It's there underneath the radiator. At first I thought it was hair because it's roughly like the consistency of the hair on his head. Then I thought it was some kind of nest material.
Yeah,
that's
it looks
what
like
I
nest
think.
material.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably a bit of a fire hazard if it's a nest at it right by
Yeah.
the radiator. I mean, I don't.
Yeah, it looks like the kindling, like the real first kind of kindling they use.
Yeah.
The nest thing like resonated with me
Yeah.
when I watched it, because this whole movie reminded me of a phrase that I once heard that I still don't understand it. But a friend of mine said that he had this old philosopher professor who would go on and on about what he just always referred to as the fecundity of life.
Yeah.
And like that's the vibe of this movie, is the fecundity of life, and those images of whatever it is, of a nest, of the baby birds, of the obvious baby, was all like this fucked up way that we reproduce, that we keep the world going.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah.
And Tamler, you should also mention to the listeners who haven't watched this, it's a tiny apartment. It's a studio.
Yeah.
It does have a bed, though, that can turn into some kind of deep water
Lovemaking.
but
Under the right
under the
circumstances.
right
Yeah.
circumstances. Yeah. It also
yeah.
has a window, which is nice,
Yeah.
but it looks out for most of the
brick
movie
wall.
right onto a brick wall. Yeah.
That's right.
That's the emotion that it first solidified in me, that like I'm trapped in this life.
Yes.
The window looks out to a brick wall.
Yes. So then, leading to this question, and it's a dumb question because, like we said earlier, there's no yes or no answer to questions like this. But here's a scene that isn't obviously a dream or hallucination of some kind like we get a little later in the movie. Do you still see this as going on in his mind or psyche, or some kind of projection onto reality?
I didn't read this scene just because of other things that happen in the apartment later, and other things in which he actually wakes up to afterwards. I didn't read this scene as in his mind.
Yeah.
I read this as whatever the sense of the outside world is in this movie is.
Yeah, maybe filtered through a prism that is, his trapped feeling and fear-ridden psyche.
Yeah, that's how I understood this, because you're right, there are levels of unreality, and so I think he pops down into dream state or whatever, hallucination state later. But this to me felt like a very Lynch kind of way of doing this. This is the experiences of somebody as interpreted through their own unconscious mind. He probably lives in an apartment that doesn't have all of those fucked up things. And dinner wasn't exactly like that.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter. Your unconscious it's not encoding the specifics of reality.
Yeah.
It's encoding this emotional tone to something. And looks like he's already kind of depressed or anxious. And this is the world that his unconscious is experiencing.
Yeah. Yeah. And it would make sense to see it that way, just the whole movie, just the fact that it's constantly that noisy and all these different kinds of noises that seem in some vague way to correspond to something he's feeling or something we're feeling. So he walks to go see his girlfriend, and then you have the great family dinner scene. I think this is if you're watching this movie, you got to at least watch through the dinner scene. If you're not on board after that, then maybe, I don't know, take a break. But you got to at least go through this scene, because it is just absolutely hilarious, I think.
Is it? Okay, is it just me that both the scenes I'm going to refer to are weird, or is this not like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre dinner scene?
I mean,
I think it's so perfectly weird, and it, some of Lynch's weirdness just creeps you the hell out. The hair stands on the back of your neck. You feel like a tingling, and it's so hard for you to get over. I didn't feel that in this scene, right? After having gone through this scene, I thought, I am in for a comedy. I mean, I'm in for, but at the same time, I would like to watch this scene 3 times, just this scene, and extract from it what I think the rest of the movie is trying to do, because so much of what is happening in that house, I feel like, is consequential to how we're supposed to read other things, right down to the dog that's in there.
Yeah,
right. That's nursing and so on. Just so much is going on.
And really, just from the opening, so she comes out, he's just waiting outside, not knowing what to do. He doesn't go up and knock. She comes outside and he starts, nagging her almost, you never come around anymore. What's going on? And she doesn't really respond to that. She says, dinner's almost ready. And there's this great shot of them looking at each other. And there's almost like a potential of like some kind of closeness that moment passes, and she just looks despondent. You see just the life go out of her as they look at each other, and her shoulders slump, and then they go in. And what's so cool about this, it's weird, but then it's also not that different than meeting your girlfriend's parents for the first time, like in terms of how that feels. The mother who's looking at you maybe a little side-eyed and judging you, what you do and, where this is all going. The father with his weird stories and his...
Totally. It captures really well that feeling of meeting a new family with their own quirks for the very first time and knowing that you have to somehow impress them, but they're also weird. It's like it's not your family.
No.
This extended silence that he's sitting there with the mom when they're sitting on the couch is just great. Just tense. Barry, you were saying that the scene didn't creep you out as much. There is one part though that really distressed me, which was when she's asking the mom is asking Henry what he does, and he says, "I'm on vacation." Then she says, and then he says, "But I used to work at a printing factory." Yeah. Mary just starts having like a seizure of some sort.
That's right.
She just starts going, and then the way that it's dealt with is the mom grabs a brush and starts brushing her hair to make it stop.
A side of her hair.
The side. I couldn't tell what that was, and that just shook me. I was like, what the fuck?
Well, the thing is, there were maybe 4 of such events in that house that night, and it's there's this. The normal weirdness when you go to a girlfriend's parents' house that you have to deal with, and there are these little quirks, and he just puts in completely abnormal weirdness that happens, and the reaction to it is exactly the same as you would react to the normal.
But I think
weirdness.
I think I don't know if it's completely divorced. It's just heightened, I think you might find out that one of the family members has this weird illness, and it's new to you, but it's not new to them. They deal with it all the time. So they're not surprised. And then the thing with the dogs, which also comes in this opening meet the mom scene, they have some weird pets that make these horrific noises maybe. And you're just what the fuck is that? In this case, it's 8 puppies violently at the mom's teat. Or I don't know if it's violent, but it's
very eagerly, very
aggressively going at it. And it also seems like she has the seizure because she's stressed out about...
Yes, about him talking about him not being at work, that would stress anybody out when you have to your mom has to discover that your boyfriend's a deadbeat,
But he's very clever at the printing factory.
I'm sure he is. Yeah. He sounds very clever. To that point that you guys are both making, that is, I think, just again, a great way in which Lynch is representing the subconscious. In the subconscious, you go to their house and they serve food that was kind of weird. Your subconscious, it's just representing it as fucked up, oozing, man-made chickens that are it really doesn't matter what it was. It just matters that your mind somehow encoded this as an uncomfortable, weird dinner experience.
Yeah. We've got chicken tonight. Strangest damn things. They're man-made. Little damn things, smaller than my fist, but they're new. I'm Bill. That's great.
Dude, the look at my knees line when he's talking about being a plumber was the funniest line to me in the whole movie. He just look at my knees.
He swings from deep bitterness to a kind of cheery, affability.
Yeah, and then catatonia at some point.
Right. We go to the kitchen, and that's where we meet Grandma. When the mom is making dinner, that is just, it's just so awesome. At some point, she just has the grandma toss the salad by literally doing every part of it, putting her fingers around the spoons.
All right,
whatever.
so people need to know. So grandma's sitting in a chair, essentially catatonic.
Yeah.
Right. So if you had a grandma who had dementia or Alzheimer's, kind of like that. So not moving in any way, staring straight ahead, and she's just put a crap ton of salad dressing on the salad and puts the bowl in grandma's lap and the tongs in grandma's hands and just grabs the hands and tosses the salad with grandma's hands.
And then lights her.
It's almost like what you,
Yeah.
then lights her cigarettes. So thank you. It's almost like what you do with little kids. You're like, oh, look, you helped. See? Like,
So then we get the chicken, and he asks, again, like this is a common thing. Like the dad asks you to carve like the turkey or something like that, who you're meeting, and you don't know what rules they have, and you're not like, like I feel like I did this when I had to go to the house. I don't know how to fucking carve something. So like, but you don't want to be really bad at it. And and here's where you get the famous chicken, which seems to be, I don't know if you'd call it alive or what.
It's about the size of a quail, like a small quail.
Yeah, that's right.
Right,
Yeah.
and the fork that he uses is like the kind you would carve a turkey with, so like a giant serving fork. So so the two tongs essentially like straddle both sides of the thing, right? And he kind of like, okay, I'll carve it, and then as soon as he puts the tongs on it, you have this famous scene. So you guys want to describe what happens?
I mean, like people have probably seen the movie, or they'll get the. Just what do you make of this? Just the oozing stuff that comes out of it. The mom like having an orgasm over just seeing it. Like, what's going on here?
Well, there's an obvious interpretation, right? This is like amniotic fluid, and this is like the spread eagle. This is like the birth thing. There's a because this comes right before the announcement that there was a baby, right? So the legs are like are animating, and they're moving up and down. The thing looks like to be alive, and then just this inordinate amount of fluid, more than could possibly be inside this bird, just oozes out of the orifice.
And it does look, it looks like a vagina at times. Yeah. It's funny, like I never really picked up on that before.
Yeah, I didn't either. So when you said it was obvious,
it wasn't obvious to me.
Oh, okay, right. So are you gonna?
What about the mom like basically coming to the chicken?
Yeah. So and this is simultaneous with the mom leaning back and kind of looks like she's orgasming. Her tongue is out.
Like tongue protruding.
Yeah, her tongue is out, and right. So all this fluid's coming out, and so like that was my take. Right afterwards, I was like, oh, something.
So we like have a turkey every Thanksgiving, like a free range, well treated turkey, or so they say at Whole Foods or whatever. When you do carve the turkey, so much liquid comes out of it, and it's like, I don't think anything of it except, I just need to like make sure I have my apron on or something like that. Also, like if it's a really well done turkey and my wife makes a good turkey, it's like everyone is gathering around going, I can't wait for this, like as you're cutting it. And so it's also the way I typically saw it, although I think, Barry, you might be also completely right about this other way, is it's just the normal thing that's also very weird, that we all sit here carving this headless animal, a lot of liquid comes out, and everyone looks at it like drooling because they're hungry. So like part of me thinks, this is like a lot of the other stuff in the scene. It's just taking ordinary weirdness that we filter through our just like take for granted categories, that he is heightening to sort of highlight the fact that our current practices are also very weird if you stop and think about them for a second. At the same time, Barry, it's pretty compelling.
The legs are moving; they're up and down.
Yeah.
Although, hopefully amniotic fluid doesn't look that tar-like in real life.
Yeah, what's the analog there, Barry?
Yeah.
Since you've unlocked the code, like the twin perfect guy.
Man. But then, okay, so what do you make then of like, is the sexuality of the mom, is that like just first like hint that she's, like a thirsty cougar?
This had exactly what happened to me the first time I met Jen's mom, by the way.
All right. So the mom comes out to inform Henry, takes him aside, that we have to go kind of in secret. We're going to talk about something. And we know eventually that it's going to be that he had a baby. But right before she does that, she leans in and kind of makes out, French kisses his neck in some way. Also unexplained, and they move on like nothing happened.
No, well, Mary, she goes, Mom, like,
Okay. Like a teenager whining.
Mom, like, don't embarrass me like that, But anyway, like, it's never confirmed that he had sex with. I mean, he just says, like, there's a baby. He's like, a baby? And
But they're not sure it even is a baby.
yeah, what do
Yeah,
I
they're
don't know
not
what
sure.
to make of that. We don't even know if it is a baby.
Yeah.
But apparently it's already been born, I guess, and it's in the
Yeah.
hospital.
Yeah, it's in the hospital.
And so they can like pick it up and like start their life together after they get married.
as soon as you get married,
Yeah.
this is when he gets a nosebleed.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And all of a sudden, like he's married and has a kid. He had no idea when he was walking over to her house that the next day he would be married and have a kid. As he gets his nosebleed, the dog starts whimpering, and we get a very Twin Peaksy shot going through the window. And then we're right into the apartment, the little precious bundle, the baby. How would you guys describe this baby?
God, man. Like I didn't know anything about this movie.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I got the hint when they're like, we don't even know. I had gotten a small hint because I had read a little, what was a spoiler to me, where there was body horror involved.
Yeah.
But I still was not ready for whatever this fucking creature is. It looks like maybe a newborn ET, whatever creature, or just like a big version of the sperm that we saw, like being tossed.
Yeah.
If
it
ET
kind of does have that vibe, like just a sperm that grew up.
Yeah, that's right. If ET had a sperm head and the eyes were on the side of it,
Yeah.
right? So it's a little bit ET, it's a little bit sperm, it's a little bit lizard, alien, just
And nobody knows how this thing was made. And Lynch will never say.
Right.
And he took the secret to his grave.
To his grave.
But it really does look alive. I mean, there are parts where it seems more animatronic, but there are other parts where you're like, that is a thing. Like, it looks like my dog Trixie a little bit. It's in some ways deeply repulsive and maybe malevolent, but in other ways, it has these kind of cute little gurgles sometimes, and you feel bad for it when it's sick and when it's having trouble breathing. It wheezes a lot. I don't know, like it's a really fully successfully pulled off thing that's impossible to describe unless you see it.
Yeah. It looks a little bit like a newborn bird, but without a beak,
Without a
but
beak,
like
yeah.
kind of like raw, like
Yeah, it's
gross
got that-
raw skin.
yeah, almost all of its body is swaddled in gauze. Right? In the beginning, it looks like how you would swaddle a newborn, pretty tightly, but it's gauze. And what's sticking out is a kind of longish straw-like neck to like the sperm-like head. And that's what you see most of the film. That thing lying on the table in that exact spot throughout the entire film. Mary's trying to feed it in the beginning, it just spits up. She's feeding it with a spoon.
Yeah.
And like some like just gunk with a spoon, and it keeps spitting it up.
And
like,
she's
no more
not
feeding.
a patient mother from the start.
Yeah, that's right.
I felt bad for the baby that she's trying to feed it. Babies don't always want like having some of this goo dumped in their mouth. Like, she's not very maternal as we'll
No,
find it.
but I actually thought that this did a really good job capturing the frustration and like that mothers have to go through, which is like, I think there's this expectation, motherhood is so wonderful. And the truth of the matter is really like you have, you're barely sleeping. The kid may or may not want to eat and sleep when you wanted to. You're in discomfort for all sorts of reasons. Your nipples are raw. You probably have a husband who's not doing nearly as much as they might do. And so like when she finally screams like to the baby to shut up, like I thought that captured the frustration that I think many women have at some point.
Yeah.
So I don't judge her too badly, except for the part where she leaves and never comes back.
Yeah.
I forget which one of you said, like, it's all the joy taken out of her. But Henry at least will smile at the baby. She just never has anything but active, like, frustration and like animosity towards it. Whereas Henry at times actually does take care of it and smiles at it. So like, but I think again, we're seeing her through his perspective too. So she's always going to be impatient, always going to be antagonized by it. So this is a weird scene. He goes into the elevator, he goes out, and he finds a little box in his mailbox, and he goes out to look at it, and it's like a little tapeworm. It doesn't seem at first like it's the kind of worm that came out of his mouth at the beginning.
No.
And I don't know if it ever is. It looks a little like that original sperm snake thing, but it also just looks like more of like a tapeworm or something.
Yeah.
He goes back up as one does. He lies. He says there was no mail when there was actually a box with a tapeworm inside. And he puts it in his little cabinet. You never know.
I don't know what to
this.
make of this shit.
Yeah.
I'm still puzzled by this little worm.
Yeah.
Just the other time we see that worm, it doesn't help us. Doesn't help us make sense of what the hell this is going on.
I mean, where it's like flipping over.
Yeah,
like
we see it flipping over
animated
in the dirt.
sequence.
Yeah, an animated sequence in the
it's
holes.
like stop motion.
And then we go through its mouth.
Yes.
But
it doesn't help with what we're supposed to make of what this thing is.
And what his plans are for it. And why is he keeping it? But worms and snakes and sperm definitely are a big theme in the movie. And they come like that. There's very few scenes where they don't eventually play a role at some point.
Here's an idea. Like, I can't help but think that like we are all worm food in the end, we're eaten by worms. And this maybe represents the thought of death as a relief from everything that's going on. And he's hiding that. He's keeping that as his special, like, this might be my out if things get too bad. And I don't want to share that that's the case, but like, this is the worm. This is the worms of death. And because arguably the end might be
his death. Yeah.
He cherishes it. And he has like that secret. It's almost like, like something that he wants to keep for himself, because all of his life currently is just completely taken over. So having something to keep for yourself seems important to him.
Yeah. And here's where Mary loses her patience. And like you said, Dave yells, "Shut up, shut up."
Shut up, shut up.
I don't think that's what they say in the baby books is what to do, but I'm sure every parent has felt that.
Oh, absolutely. If you haven't said it out loud, you definitely said it to yourself or in bed.
She just decides, I'm leaving. I need to get a good night's sleep. I don't know when I'll be back. And her getting the suitcase from under the bed.
I love that
very
scene.
funny.
I love that scene. Because I wasn't sure what she was doing, but she's on her knees at the foot of the bed, like motioning, like desperate, like pulling something.
Yeah.
And then you realize
it looks like she's fucking the bed.
Her fully packed.
Yeah.
It looks like she's fucking the bed, but you realize it was her fully packed suitcase underneath the bed.
That was her version of the worm, just a fully packed suitcase.
It was her go bag.
Right. So now he's alone with the child for the first time, right? And he wonders whether it's sick, and then takes its temperature.
Yeah.
Right. And then it becomes sick, and you get a scene of pustules, and it's just really gross.
So
like
very scary.
Very scary.
Yeah, and broken teeth. Like it looks like
rotting mouth.
Yeah.
And he decides, oh, okay, well then I'll just put a humidifier on. And okay, so this point of the film, even the sounds was absolutely took me right back to the first 5 days of my daughter's birth. And why the sounds? Because there was this white noise machine, right? Because when as we all know, we're fathers, when the baby first comes out for a good month, maybe 2 months, in order to quiet a newborn, you got to play some kind of loud white noise, because when they're in the womb, it's just this amplified sound of the surroundings. And that's what comforts them. If there's too much quiet, which you need to sleep, they just can't, settle down. And so we tried so many things. Static, right? The kind of thing that comes from this. There was whatever her bassinet came with, it was like this, it's like how the heartbeat would sound when other stuff goes on. And it sounded exactly like the soundscape of that apartment.
Yeah.
Right? Just wind, like a combination of wind, static, a thumping, like this regular heartbeat thing. And then like the sound of the bubbling humidifier, because they get congested like day 5 or 4 or whatever. This happens with newborns all of a sudden, and you think they're sick and you freak out if it's your first child.
Yeah,
and so you put on like a humidifier and all that. And I was like, oh, this is exactly what it's like to have a newborn. Maybe it's not an alien baby, but it feels like that, right? And like you feel like this illness, which is just the sniffles, is like going to kill the thing, right? So like it's pustules. I'm like, this is exactly right down to how it sounds, what I felt when I was sleep deprived, maybe 2 hours of sleep a night, but it was intermittent. So it'd be 4 a.m. and you come back up slightly awake and then you freak out because it's kind of stuffy, the child, you know?
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because when she leaves, the baby has been crying nonstop. And as soon as she leaves, it actually calms down for the first time. And he's sitting by it. And yeah, he takes its temperature, and then it's like a jump scare. Like he looks at it, it's normal, and then he turns around and like all of a sudden, like you were describing, it's just, but the fact that he then has the wherewithal and puts the humidifier there and sits with it is almost like the closest thing to, like, I guess this is consistent with what you're saying, normal domesticity. Like he's not freaking out about it. So I almost took like a positive message out of just that little sequence. It doesn't last for more than a few moments, but that almost seemed like the best interaction that they ever have with the baby during that period.
Yeah, there's affection there.
Yeah.
But again, your subconscious, like, it's just true. Sometimes you're like, this is a creature. Like that thought that this is a creature is just captured wonderfully with this like actual fucking crazy creature.
Yeah. And then he tries to leave because I think, I don't know where he's planning on going. I don't know if it's the neighbor at this point, but as soon as he opens the door, the baby, who's been calm from the humidifier and for all the things that you were describing, Barry, just starts immediately crying. And then he closes the door and it stops, and then he opens it again and it starts crying, basically trapping him in the apartment. And it's making these now at this point like horrible gargling, wheezing noises too. Ugh. So then he goes to sleep, and now we get the first act of the Radiator Cabaret. We see the woman. She has like paper mache cheeks of some kind, like big excretions on her cheeks. Looks, I mean, I guess if you deformed in a way, but
do you notice that there's a picture of a mushroom atomic bomb in the background? Yeah. Her cheeks look like the bomb, like the mushroom cloud of the bomb. Oh. And so I couldn't help but think, this is again my narrative, that what she represents is the death, like by dint of being associated with that deathly explosion.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, that's not like, I have kind of the opposite interpretation, but I'm interested as we get further to discuss that more.
Yeah, I don't know, but yeah, whatever it is, the emotion that he associates with her is escape and it's like relief or escape. This is when the weird sperms start falling onto the stage.
Yeah.
And she starts stamping them out. And again, here I couldn't help but think that she's representing, like, she starts stepping on these little sperm creatures and killing them. Anti-fecundity. She is sexuality without the baby, without the reproduction. She represents like the liberty that maybe you would have if you were in a marriage with a brand new baby, where sex is not like something that's like being thought of at any point for a while.
She represents the pill.
Yeah. And I thought like the sperm falling might just represent him jerking off, like fantasizing.
Oh, interesting. I mean, so one thing to say before that happens is you have this kind of carnival-like music playing, like organ music, and her expression is like giddy, kind of like a little nervous, but also excited. And she's doing this dance, which just involves her kind of shuffling from one side of the stage to the other side of the stage. And then all of a sudden the sperm snakes start falling, and she, she's a professional. She doesn't panic. She continues the dance, but then also starts stomping on a few of them, and that yellow pus blood comes out of it. And then she's pulled back into a kind of howling darkness. So I think she does represent an escape, like you said, Dave, for sure, but also maybe some kind of potential in Henry that he's not realizing.
Yeah.
And maybe that potential is death, but a potential at this point. Yeah.
Yeah. Like the two takes that we have aren't that different, especially if you don't view death as a negative.
Yeah.
Like it's perfectly consistent with everything that you're saying about it. I did think of this as Club Silencio with some
the giant sperm.
Giant sperm.
The sperm is trying to hit a target. There's something going on. She's dodging it. That's definitely true. And she kills it. That's also true. So that's...
Oh, yeah. She's like playing Space Invaders with the sperm. She's shuffling back and forth.
Right. That's just the literal description. I don't know what to make on top of all of that, right? So,
and it's not even definitely sperm. Also, like it's like little snake-like things with sperm-like heads that are falling, but we don't have to. It's not.
No, we don't.
Yeah.
It's whatever
I
it
was
is
convinced from the beginning that it was sperm, and that's how I read it.
That's right. It's like, whatever it is that dropped into the puddle in the beginning.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And even maybe the baby at the end.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, it
We'll
looks
have
like
to,
that. So, we'll get
so
there.
then, I think once you go back into the like howling darkness, then he wakes up. So I think, like Lynch is telling us this is some kind of dream escape for him. You think he's waking up to whatever reality is supposed to be in this world, but his wife is there.
Yeah.
This made me feel, I would say this is the thing that made me feel most uneasy. She's there and she kind of moves over to, his side of the bed and she's making him uncomfortable and he's like, move over. He's very petulant, really, almost the whole movie. And
she's swaddled, Tamler. She's
swaddled, yes.
She's not just under the blanket.
But you don't know that at first.
Right.
You think maybe
you
she
don't know that
came
at first.
back. Yeah, she's swaddled like the baby. But then also just clicking and spasming and that click, that sound that she keeps making, and he's just trying to go back to sleep. It's kind of terrifying. And then, never mind the fact that then when he starts opening the swaddle, all these snakes come out of her.
Sperms.
You see sperm everywhere. Like here, it doesn't seem like it's sperm necessarily that is coming out. It seems like snakes.
Maybe not. Like they're definitely like long and with a head, and he throws them up against the wall.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
I guess it's like sometimes, the wife comes on your side of the bed when you're trying to sleep. He encodes this in his unconscious. But now we're in real dream territory. He woke up, but he didn't wake up to even the reality of this movie. Like, we're on our way. The cupboard now lights up and starts to open. And here's what you alluded to earlier, Barry, that the small tapeworm-looking thing just starts running around and flipping, like in stop motion. It's like a slinky the way it moves, but really fast. It's the only thing in this movie that's super fast.
Into and out of holes, presumably in the dirt pile.
Yeah, exactly.
Where the tree is coming out of.
It disappears for a second and then reappears, and then it seems like it yells. It like opens its mouth. There's this big chasm that we seem to enter. It's very cool the way he films this. It's like all of a sudden we're journeying into this tapeworm's mouth somehow.
Yeah.
And so then he's in space for a second, but then he's also in his apartment back, like sitting on the bed. And this is where the neighbor, the beautiful neighbor from across the hall, as she's called in the credits, comes in. She emerges from the rich blacks of my OLED TV and says she locked herself out. She asks if she can spend the night. Where's his wife? And the bed is turned as they kiss in what I wouldn't call an erotic scene. The bed turns into some sort of giant puddle, and they fall beneath it.
When I saw this, it looked to me like, I think my note said sex in the primordial ooze.
Yeah.
Like again, something, the way that this film represents life as both like the force of life, but like also in this dark, dark way.
Yeah.
To me, it seemed like, okay, we emerged from the primordial ooze. That's where life started. And there they are having sex in what looks to me like a primordial ooze.
Yeah, it's primal and also hostile a lot of the time.
Yes.
The baby is kind of crying. I'm kind of surprised the baby lets them do this. But again, I don't think we're in literal territory here.
They're doing it. They're in the pool. She kind of looks horrified at the crying child. Or maybe not quite as horrified, but there's a look she gives to the child. But then they turns back and then they keep doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, she looks like very frightened at that creature.
I took it as more like, oh, fuck, you have a kid that's going to be crying while I'm trying to have sex.
Cock blocking.
Yeah, but then she goes back to doing it, but then she leaves. She goes back into the blackness, and now out of the blackness emerges the lady in the radiator, although we didn't know we were in the radiator. And she sings this song that I have not been able to get out of my head since I saw this in the theater on Wednesday night. A very simple song. I'm not going to try to do the tune because then it'll get back in my head. That's the whole song. And she has a kind of, on the one hand, kind of beatific look on her face, like a kind of touched by divine goodness. But then also I think you could read it as potentially sinister. It's a really interesting effect that she produces with this song. Is this song something we're supposed to think of as presenting a positive or affirmative vision of something, or is it a trap?
When by this point, I was like, she's calling him.
Yeah.
She's a siren calling him, and what I think of calling him to death by saying in heaven. But again, does just to an escape, like leave wherever you are. You said beatific, like, yeah, she does have this look. It reminds me of like a 20s, like Betty Boop kind of like, like style.
And you say he's summoning her. He goes up to her and and she does something with her hands, right? She like opens her hands. She like it's an offering of some kind that she has. There's nothing in her hand, but she kind of holds them as if it's like some kind of offering to him. And he wants to go, he's hesitant as always, but he walks up to her and he touches her hand, and you do get a blinding white light, but then she vanishes, and then all of a sudden in her place is the man in the planet. And then they roll in a giant version of the plant tree that's on his bedside table into, like, he's in the radiator now. We should I guess, indicate. So you're just like, what the hell is going on here? Why is his bedside table thing come in? Why is the man with and this is before things completely go crazy.
Right.
This is before his head pops off. Like, I'm just wondering, like, what the fuck is going on?
I have no fucking idea.
No idea whatsoever.
You're right. Like the way that she holds her hands out, it's like she has something in them.
Yeah.
Like a secret for it, because she's not really reaching out to him. It's like she's holding something close to her that she's got, like beckoning him to come see, and that's when he grabs her hands.
Yeah.
But
and then head pops off. First he starts moving his hands like on like a curtain rod like thing, and then pop, and it goes onto the ground, and then we see his true self. His true self is do you mean the baby is his true self? Because the baby's head comes out from his neck.
Yep. That's why the baby looks like that, because that's what he
apple of his father's eye.
The head doesn't fall far from the tree. Wait, is
that's good. And the baby has this expression. It's still kind of crying, but it's also looking a little triumphant, I think, if I could interpret its expression.
I mean, it is like a funny effect with like the hands, his hands still like scrolling through that metal tube or whatever. It looks like the baby. Yeah, it does kind of look like that to me.
It's like so then the head disappears from there, drops into the quote unquote real world. I love this sequence. Like
this is crazy.
Like
the vibes to me was like in Mulholland Drive when we get into the diner.
It's also its own little mini short film. It's that's like right. This boy finds a head, picks it up, takes it to like this building in an office, and you have no idea what's going on. The guy,
right. That's why I was talking about the diner scene.
It is like
right. It all of a sudden becomes its own short.
Yeah, it's like a film within a film about how you make erasers, and it's just very funny. Like we got to speed up, but I just love that there's a lot of levels he has to pass. But when he gets to the factory, the eraser maker, and he gives him the head and he tries it out, and you see all the pencils being made and the erasers come on it. And then, once he kind of confirms, he goes like, it's okay. He sounds like he's from like a 40s movie. And they give him the money, and like it was just a good transaction. The kid got his money, they got their erasers.
Quality eraser right here. Good job. Good job, kid.
Yeah. And then you have this visual motif that you see quite a bit, like the kind of a dust swirling in space. I suppose you could also, since you guys see sperm everywhere, you could think it's sperm with his head. And then Henry wakes up. I think he has a like I'm losing my shit moment there.
Yeah.
Like
is this where when he wakes up, like his arms almost look like the bird wings of like a dead bird? I
didn't see that.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
I remember. Yeah.
He goes like, I think it's when he wakes up. He wakes up like this.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yes,
like
that's
the
right,
chicken.
that's
And it really looks like chicken wings or bird wings. Yeah.
And I think he sees stuff on the wall and in the bed that looks like he's just been like throwing stuff and like clawing at the bed. And he sits up and he's like, "Whoa, that's what I got from it." And then this is weird. Like all of a sudden he's looking out a window, which we didn't think.
It's not a brick wall anymore.
What?
It's not a brick wall.
Yeah, there's
it's not
no
a brick
wall, and he sees some kind of assault in the street below in a puddle.
Yeah.
And I don't think he had any other windows in that place. So all of a sudden the bricks were removed. He opens the door. He goes to the neighbor. He's like, I think he probably dreamt about the neighbor. He's like, you know what? I'm going to make this real. And he knocks on the neighbor's door, and there's no answer. And then when he comes back, the baby's just laughing at him.
Yeah,
Like,
the baby's laughing.
He's definitely laughing at him. It's like it's like an evil cackle. It's like he's mocking him at that point.
Yeah. It's like he's going for a booty call.
Yeah.
And he's
Sorry.
It's failing. Yeah.
It's just hilarious, And again, like you can't take this fully literally, but you probably think your baby is fucking with you at certain points. And it's just fully enjoying it. Yeah, and then when he does hear the woman again, she's with just this truly repulsive guy with these pustules coming from his cheek. And it's weird because that looks disgusting, whereas the deformed cheeks of the blonde lady in the radiator seems weird, but not repulsive.
Yeah, because it's less diseased looking.
Yeah.
But okay, so then the neighbor looks at him, the woman, and sees that baby head image with his body that we saw earlier when his head popped off. Like what's going on there? Like she sees his true self too?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
But it does seem like that's a key moment. Like that's the moment where I think he decides to cut open the swaddles of the baby is when she sees him like that.
So I think there's two ways to read that. One is it's how she sees him, and the other way is how he is thinking she's seeing him.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. She's repulsed by me.
Yes.
Like I am.
That's right.
I am just this thing.
And that might be an explanation for what comes next.
Yes. She associates me with the baby, which means I am like just completely unappealing to her right now.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. I think that's.
And he gets this resolve on his face
for one of the first times in the whole movie.
For one of the first times, it's like anger, but angry resolve. Yeah. And he reaches for the scissors.
Oh, you want to do this, Tamler? You're going to describe what happens in this last scene?
So he cuts open the swaths, and the baby starts crying. And you don't know if the baby's crying because he just doesn't want these scissors near the baby. But at a certain point, you get the sense that the swaddles are actually part of the baby. It's not a swaddle. It's like an organic material that is part of the baby's physical organism. And then he gets to the end and opens it, and it's just the baby's organs, and all like the heart, the lungs, and the baby's freaking out. You get the sense the baby is like, like something bad's about to happen. It doesn't seem like he's dying yet, but it seems like the baby might die if like Henry didn't
quickly sew it back up.
Yeah.
Yeah, it felt like baby murder already to me.
But then he isn't going to take chances. He finishes the job, stabs the baby, and
he cuts it up the middle of the organs. Whenever the organs are in the middle, he doesn't just stab it. I think he actually cuts. He actually uses the scissors.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. You're right. And then that leads to a lot of spurting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like all of a sudden, this what will later be called in like Fire Walk with Me and Twin Peaks, like garmonbosia, this like creamed corn looking thing comes out of the baby. Now in Twin Peaks, garmonbosia represents misery and suffering. But it is something that like these evil demons feed on.
We also get now one of these worm things, one of these that's like also spurting onto the electrical outlet.
Yes, which is electricity is now going crazy in the whole apartment. And
great shot of his face. Like the lighting just looks great on his face.
Henry's or the baby?
Henry's. Yeah. And his face is distressed and lit halfway, and the sparkling, and this is where the fucking baby head starts.
Yeah, it's not going down without a fight, the baby, and it just becomes giant and multiple, and like all over the walls. Everything is completely out of control, sound wise, the head wise, being big, enormous, all over the place. And then all of a sudden the lights go out. The planet breaks up, it seems like. Henry's in the dust space again and then enters the black. And here's where the man on the planet, we got a shot of the man on the planet. He tries to push the gears, but they're jammed. And he keeps trying to push them and he can't get them to work. And then it becomes light. And Henry is with the girl in the radiator. She gives him a hug. And we get this look on Henry's face. Maybe, this would play into, I think, your interpretation too, David. Like he looks peaceful, maybe for the first time, but it's enigmatic. Like I think his expression you could read in a lot of different ways.
His eyes are closed and they look tranquil.
Yeah. Fade to black. Movie's over. What do you make of all this, Barry?
I will not give a full coherent interpretation since I've only seen this once, but our discussion, it strikes me that the key is to compare the wife, the neighbor, and the woman on stage. I think the key is to look at the roles that they play and represent for him in this particular kind of life stage.
Yeah.
And this particular kind of relationship that he has. I read all that worm stuff as sperm also. The same as Dave. But like the particular relationship between you and sperm, procreation, your sexuality, and what that does for you in your life. And I think that's the key. Whatever the story is, it's got to be something about what those three women represent to Henry. Finally, the woman on stage is the one who has the last kind of say.
Yeah.
Right. That's sort of the salvation. Yeah. But whatever that is, that's got to be it, I think.
Yeah.
So what is it for you, Barry? What would you say is like, what is the neighbor representing as opposed to the radiator woman?
So the very first scene with the neighbor, she was reporting about the phone call, but she gave him these hungry eyes, right?
Yeah.
She's clearly, immediately I was like, oh, this is the sexy neighbor.
You could pretty straightforwardly read her as representing when you get married at a young age. Like all the women now you see, they're like, well, guess that's now off limits. Like it just seems like the whole world wants to fuck you. And yet, and now you're not supposed to anymore.
But one of the things that I noticed about him when it came to the mother and the girlfriend, he's a frightened individual, but he cooperates, right?
Yeah.
So there's frightened people who are frightened and they just like detach, right? They're like, I'm going to avoid. But he's the opposite, right? So he's frightened by and nervous and just anxious about everything, but he goes along with everything, right? He's not the kind of person like whatever you want, whatever I'm going to do, right? The wife abandons the child care right at the beginning, but he cooperates. He's like, okay, well, I guess that's what she needs. And so I guess I'm going to be tasked with watching.
Yeah, I mean, he gets a little petulant about it. It's like, why don't you just never come back,
Right, that's true. That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. So
that's as agentic as he is in that part of the movie.
And really in the whole movie up till him killing the
baby,
Yeah. But so clearly the neighbor lady it's much more id-like. It's much like this is the horny self. This is the sex. I couldn't, I'm trying here. Like the woman on stage, on the other hand, she's like stepping on the sperm. She's dodging the sperm. That's my reading of it. She's clearly, there's something about an afterlife, like something about bodiless virtue going on there. Something about that in death. I don't know. That's who he embraces at the end.
Are you sticking with this is his death? She beckoned him to death as the final escape, liberation from this oppressive life?
I took that from Dave. Dave, what do you think?
Yeah. I feel that way. I feel that way extra at the end there because whatever the man in the planet is representing, like that planet blows up and, the levers no longer work. It feels like the destruction of his body, maybe. And the warm embrace of the tempting, idyllic, cherubic, angelic woman who's singing about heaven, and that flash of white, especially after that baby grew, baby probably did him in, like I'm sure he was choosing death, but it feels like the baby was doing him in there at the end too. Yeah. But again, the death, if that is death, is better than the world that he's been in. This, and I can't say enough about like what you've already been talking about, the industrial landscape and soundscape, and the way that all that, the way that it just makes everything feel, oppressive.
Yeah. And it never stops until the quiet at the very end.
Never stops. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, there's a lot speaking to that. Yeah, I'm very curious to hear your take on it. So there's a little extra textual stuff, which A, that he called it his most spiritual film. B, that he 1 year into it, started doing transcendental meditation. Has always talked about that as, until he started doing that, he was a very fearful person. And then that just showed him that there's something underneath all of that that's actually like, sometimes he refers to it as like an ocean of consciousness, a light, a reserve of energy and creativity. And what transcendental meditation allows you to do, he says, is get past a lot of these things that are holding you down, holding people down. If you try to map some of that onto the movie, I think it works pretty well. Like, here is a guy who is imprisoned by his fears, by his anxieties, his timidity. That's how he sees the world, is how we see it in the movie. And then there are these just beckonings of like, wait, there's something else going on here. It's not just industrial clanging and worm babies and shrewish wives and, treacherous neighbors across the hall that will be with you one day and then some just repulsive man the next day. There's something else that if you can overcome your fears, then you will have access to, you can experience. And so if all the things that you call sperms, if you think of that as just different kinds of fears, different kinds of things that are holding you back and making you see the world in this deeply counterproductive way and noisy way. Like if you can access it, there's a reservoir of something else, but first you have to face your fears and confront them. And I take that end scene where the baby, who is probably his greatest anxiety, now it's like all over the place and giant and everything's fritzing out. This is the final confrontation with his fears that leads to a kind of awakening at the end that is symbolized and called to by this lady in the radiator. And when she hugs and he feels at peace, you could look at that as death, but you could also look at it as a kind of liberation that comes through some kind of enlightenment or awakening, and maybe one, for at least David Lynch, that you might access through, in his case, transcendental meditation.
Yeah.
I think that is interesting and helps make sense of why it's not a real baby.
Yeah.
Because if we say, okay, it's a baby by metaphor, it's a deformed offspring of some aspect of yourself. Literally, it's like decapitates you sometimes. And what you do is you nurture it. That's what you feel compelled to do. Right. It is something that is disruptive, but also you feel the need to take care of it.
Right. Like your ego.
That would make, so that would make the the murder scene not a murder scene or an instance of infanticide,
Right.
but a kind of killing of some aspect.
Ego death.
Right.
Yeah. There's this idea of samsara, like all this stuff that gets in the way of you accessing who you really are and what reality really is. And it's just like all this stuff gets in the way of that. Anxieties, thoughts, your ego, your identity, and fears. Once you're able to clear that away, you realize that you're not just this little head, that you're something bigger. And you could see the man on the planet as just churning out samsara, like the illusion, the web of illusions that entrap us. And then when he can't do it at the end, it's because glimpsed beyond that normal surface stuff that imprisons us. And this is maybe why he calls it his most spiritual film. And last thing, this is too gimmicky and facile maybe, but remember, Dave, when we had Sam Harris on and we were talking about the no head aspect of Buddhism, one of the ways that you can glimpse your true nature as a spacious awareness is to recognize that you have no head, that you actually, that is a construct or a concept that you impose, but it's not how you experience the world. Well, you could see the movie as erase your head. Erase your head.
Clever.
There you go.
That's it. Solved.
Solved, baby.
Finally got the right interpretation.
Yeah, so I like everything you said, and I obviously, this is open. The one thing that I want to know, like if it works on your reading, is this feeling that I have that the lady in the radiator is tempting him to come.
Yeah.
Like you said, at one point, it's like, is she good?
Yeah.
And given like that, the baby kind of looks like a sperm, and maybe if those other things are sperms, like the fact that she is like crushing them under her feet and calling him, she's like, it feels like she's calling him to like, free yourself from your body, from this bodily existence, from this reproduction, from like the world in which you live that is full of this like gross, weird bodily stuff.
Yeah.
And come to me. And I've always thought, maybe it's just me, that like the point at which you can really do what you're talking about requires like effort and discipline, not something you just get tempted into and you can, and then it happens. But rather she feels more like a siren,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think it's not that much daylight between these two interpretations, because like you said, there is a kind of ego death that...
And definitely that helps make sense of why when his head popped off, it was that baby thing.
Yeah.
Like I like between what you and Barry were saying, like maybe the baby was just his ego in some way.
Yeah. And like the potentially sinister aspect of her is maybe the fact that he doesn't know whether he can trust this or not. It could be that, or it could be that we're not meant to know whether this is something that's like death.
She's hiding the thing in her hand.
Yeah.
She's not revealing to him everything yet.
That's right.
I love, by the way, in the interview that you've been referencing where he says it's his most spiritual film, it's just the best response when the interviewer says, "Can you expand on that?" He just says, "No."
It's classic Lynch.
Perfect. It's
quintessential
perfect.
Lynch right there. Yeah. Where does this rank, Barry, in your like favorite Lynch movies, since you've seen a bunch?
I would put it. Wow, it's so different. I don't know if it's commensurable with like Blue Velvet, or, for instance, which I put up there for me.
Me too. Yeah.
I think if Blue Velvet's on the top, different, probably commensurable with Lost Highway a little bit for me.
I would put
like
it right there, like with that.
Yeah.
Like I'm not sure which one I like better. It'd probably depend on the day.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so different.
Are those both higher than Inland Empire?
I don't get it. I can't. I don't know how to engage with Inland Empire quite yet.
Well, we have a Patreon episode.
You teach in the Inland Empire.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, I teach in the Inland Empire now. So
now you'll like it'll be obvious to you.
Now you finally get it.
Yeah.
It is much more perplexing than this movie, I would say.
Yes.
I have not seen that many Lynch films, but I do. This does feel like it's in its own category as the primordial ooze from which so much of the other Lynch oof
Right.
like comes from. Like you just can see even the little that I know from Twin Peaks and from the movies I've seen, you can just see it here. And it is like we've talked before about people's first work. It has all these ideas that work their way into these other movies. So it's like it is like the dad. It is the spermatozoa that creates the other works.
It's the Eraserhead's baby of Lynch's career. Yeah, it's such a touchstone. I think it's great. I really loved it these times. It's also 89
that
minutes.
I've just invented.
Like,
it's very easy to get through. Yeah.
Well, I don't know if it's easy to
time-wise.
To be very clear.
Yeah. The first 5 minutes do feel like 20 minutes if you've never seen it before.
It's the key to unlocking the movie.
Yeah.
All right. Any final thoughts, Barry?
Not at all. Love this opportunity to talk about David Lynch. I think it's my first David Lynch discussion group.
Oh, nice. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Buy his book, Become Better People, by reading that, and also by seeing Eraserhead, and either dying or becoming enlightened.
Thanks, Barry.
Thanks, guys.
Join us next time on Very Bad Wizards.
The Gleaning Boss has spoken. Pay no attention to that man behind the curtain.
Who are you? Who are you? A very bad man.
I'm a very good man. Good man. They think deep thoughts, and with no more brains than you have. Pay no attention to that man. Anybody can have a brain.
You're a very bad man.
I'm a very good man. Just a very bad wizard.